The Illyrian council chambers erupted in mocking laughter as human diplomat Craig Simpson proposed a treaty between their species, not knowing the grave mistake they were making by underestimating humanity. Craig kept his expression steady as the Illyrians sneered and scoffed. High Counselor Sagan leaned forward, his scaled face smug. "A treaty? With primitive apes like you?" Sagan chuckled, shaking his head. "Humans are barely evolved enough to achieve faster-than-light travel. What could you possibly offer us?" "Humans seek only peace," Craig said evenly, meeting Sagan's condescending gaze. "We propose an alliance of mutual—" "You misunderstand," Sagan interrupted. "These are not negotiations. The Illyrian Empire has graciously decided to accept humanity's surrender. You will submit to our rule as a subordinate species, or face the consequences." Craig stiffened. So that was their plan. Conquest, not cooperation. Servitude for all humans, under the boot of Illyrian oppressors. "Humanity will never surrender our freedom," Craig declared, rising to his feet. "We would rather fight to the last than live as slaves." "Then you have sealed your fate," Sagan's eyes glittered coldly. "Prepare for war." As Craig marched from the council chamber, he overheard the Illyrians' true intentions, a massive surprise attack on Earth's colonies. He rushed to relay a warning to the human fleet. Through Craig's eyes, a monumental galactic conflict was unfolding. For decades, the Illyrian Empire had subjugated a third of the known galaxy. Newly arrived on the interstellar stage, humanity posed a rare challenge to Illyrian supremacy. Now, the Illyrian armada amassed at Earth's borders, ready to strike. Craig knew the odds were grim. The Illyrians commanded vast fleets and superior firepower. Few species dared resist them. But Craig had glimpsed something in his fellow humans' eyes, a fierce, unbreakable determination, an indomitable will to protect their way of life, and a spark of ingenuity that had taken them from their first steps on the moon to the farthest reaches of space in a single century. As warships cast ominous shadows across Earth's skies, Craig knew the battle to come would be brutal. But if any species could find a way to prevail against impossible odds, it was humanity. The Illyrians would soon learn the true depths of human courage and tenacity. The war for humanity's survival had begun. As the Illyrian warships surged towards Earth's colonies, a grim silence fell over the command center, where Craig Simpson delivered his dire report to the assembled human military leadership. Jaws clenched and fists tightened as the scale of the impending onslaught became clear. Admiral Ivanova spoke first, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We've always known this day might come. Now it's here. We fight not just for our lives, but for the future of our entire species." Craig nodded solemnly. "The Illyrians think we're weak, that we'll crumble under the first blow. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Orders flew and ships mobilized as humanity braced for the storm. The bulk of Earth's fleet took up defensive positions around key colonies and strategic choke points, ready to sell their lives dearly. But even the most battle-hardened human warriors felt a chill as the first images of the approaching Illyrian armada filtered back. Sleek, predatory warships, jam-packed with advanced weaponry, dwarfed humanity's defenders. The Illyrians had honed their military might through centuries of conquest, and it showed. The first blows fell like hammer strikes, the Illyrian ships tearing through human defenses with contemptuous ease. Colony after colony fell, smashed into submission by merciless orbital bombardments. Entire cities vanished in pillars of fire, millions of lives snuffed out in an instant. Humanity reeled, but held fast, trading space for time. And in the chaos, a desperate plan took shape in Craig's mind. Lure the Illyrians to the heavily fortified colony of Bastion and spring a trap that just might turn the tide. To Craig's surprise, the Illyrians took the bait, their overconfidence drawing them in. As their warships approached Bastion, the true strength of Earth's fleet emerged from hiding, reinforcements secretly gathered from every corner of human space. And so, under the blood-red skies of Bastion, the mightiest space battle in human history erupted. Outnumbered and outgunned, Earth's ships hurled themselves at the Illyrian fleet with reckless courage, buying time with their lives. Lasers flashed, missiles flew, and ships died in droves as the human fleet drove the Illyrians into the teeth of Bastion's orbital defenses. Massive railguns and plasma cannons tore into the Illyrian ships, exacting a heavy toll for every kilometer they advanced. But even as human ships fell in flames around him, Craig held an ace up his sleeve. With a final, terse command, he ordered Bastion's defense platforms to overload their reactors and detonate, a suicide attack to cripple the Illyrian fleet. A new sun bloomed in Bastion's orbit as the platforms exploded, engulfing dozens of Illyrian warships in an inferno of thermonuclear fire. The Illyrian advance faltered, their fleet thrown into disarray by the unexpected blast. Seizing the moment, the surviving human ships surged forward, hammering the disoriented Illyrians with everything they had. And in the chaos, Craig led a desperate boarding action onto the Illyrian flagship, determined to confront Admiral Zeldor himself. Through smoke and flames, Craig's strike team fought their way to the bridge, Illyrian bodies piling in their wake. As they burst onto the command deck, weapons leveled at a shocked Admiral Zeldor, Craig played his final card. "Surrender now," Craig demanded, his voice cold as the void. "Or I detonate the fusion bombs we've hidden across your empire. Humanity falls and we take you with us." In that moment, as realization dawned in Zeldor's eyes, the course of galactic history shifted. The Illyrian fleet, its aura of invincibility shattered, withdrew from human space. And in the aftermath, as Craig stood before the Illyrian leadership to negotiate an improbable peace, one thing became crystal clear. Humanity would never again be underestimated. The Illyrians had learned, at devastating cost, the depths of human courage and tenacity. A new era had dawned, one where Earth stood tall among the stars, unbowed and unbroken. The galaxy would never be the same. Craig Simpson stepped off the shuttle onto Zephyr Prime, the Illyrian capital world. The air felt heavy, thick with tension despite the ceasefire. As Earth's newly appointed ambassador, Craig knew the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Maintaining peace between humanity and the Illyrians would be no easy task. The spires of the Illyrian capital loomed above, alien and imposing. Craig straightened his uniform and strode towards the council chambers, flanked by a security detail. Inside, High Counselor Sagan waited, his scaled face unreadable. "Ambassador Simpson," Sagan said, inclining his head. "Welcome to Zephyr Prime." Craig nodded curtly. "Hi, Counselor. Let's get down to business." For days, they haggled over trade agreements, border disputes, and arms limitations. But something felt off. Craig noticed furtive glances between Illyrian officials, hushed conversations that stopped when he approached. Late one night, Craig's datapad pinged, an anonymous source, claiming to be an Illyrian whistleblower. What Craig saw made his blood run cold, schematics for a new class of superweapon capable of destroying entire planets. The next morning, Craig confronted Sagan. "Care to explain this?" He slammed the datapad on the table. Sagan's eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "Does it matter? You've violated the treaty. These weapons could wipe out our colonies in seconds." Sagan slumped in his chair. "It's not what you think. There's a faction, led by General Corax. They want to restart the war, claim what they see as our rightful place of dominance." Before Craig could respond, alarms blared. The chamber doors burst open as armed Illyrian soldiers poured in. "What is the meaning of this?" Sagan demanded. A gruff voice answered. "The meaning, High Counselor, is that your reign of weakness ends now." General Corax strode in, resplendent in military regalia. "The treaty with the humans is void. We will reclaim our glory, starting now." Craig lunged for his communicator, but a rifle butt slammed into his stomach. As he doubled over, gasping, Corax's voice rang out. "Deploy the weapon. Show the humans the price of defiance." Craig's mind raced. He had to stop this somehow. As Corax's men dragged him away, he caught the eye of his security detail. A subtle nod passed between them. Whatever happened next, Craig knew one thing. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Craig Simpson stepped off the transport shuttle onto Earth's soil, inhaling deeply. The familiar scent of home hit him like a wave after months in the sterile environment of spaceships and alien worlds. His wife Sarah rushed towards him, wrapping him in a tight embrace. Their daughter Mia wasn't far behind, crashing into his legs with a squeal of delight. "Daddy, you're back!" Craig scooped her up, savoring the moment of peace, but it was short-lived. His comm unit buzzed insistently, drawing a sigh from Sarah. "They're calling you back already, aren't they?" Before Craig could respond, Admiral Chen's hologram materialized. "Simpson, we've got a situation. Multiple colonies have gone dark. No warning, no distress calls, just silence." Craig's stomach dropped. "Illyrians?" "Unknown, but we need you to lead a task force, now." Days later, Craig stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, staring at the swirling vortex of FTL travel. His second-in-command, Lena Kostova, approached with a datapad. "Energy signatures detected at each vanished colony, sir. Unlike anything we've seen before." Craig nodded grimly. "Plot a course to the source." The Dauntless dropped out of FTL in an unremarkable star system. But what they saw made every jaw on the bridge drop. A massive ring structure encircled the system's sun, dwarfing even the gas giants. "My God," Lena whispered, "is that—" Before Craig could respond, alarms blared. Swarms of sleek angular drones poured from the ring structure, weapons firing. "Evasive maneuvers," Craig shouted. "Return fire!" The bridge rocked as energy beams slammed into their shields. Crew members were thrown from their stations. A console exploded in a shower of sparks. "Hull breach on deck 4, an ensign called out. "We're venting atmosphere." Craig gripped his chair as the ship shuddered. "Get us inside that ring. It's our only chance." The Dauntless limped towards the megastructure, trailing debris and atmosphere. As they passed through an energy field, the drones abruptly disengaged. Inside, they found cavernous chambers filled with stasis pods, millions of them. Craig's team moved cautiously through the eerie silence, their footsteps echoing. "Sir," Lena called, her voice tight, "you need to see this." In one chamber, Craig saw familiar scaled faces, Illyrians, suspended just like the human colonists. Whatever had taken their people had taken Illyrians too. As they explored further, piecing together the artifact's purpose, Craig felt a chill. This wasn't just a threat to humanity or the Illyrians. This was something far older, far more powerful than either of them. When they reached the control center, Craig knew they had to act. "We need to wake everyone up. Shut this thing down." But as Lena's fingers danced across the alien console, alarms began to blare. A holographic countdown appeared, accompanied by an ominous charging sound. "What did you do?" Craig demanded. Lena's face was pale. I think we just armed a doomsday device." Before Craig could respond, a new voice crackled over the comms. "Unidentified vessels. This is the Illyrian battlecruiser Fang of Retribution. Stand down and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." Craig looked from the countdown to the millions of stasis pods, to the Illyrian warships now visible through a view screen. Time was running out. Somehow he had to convince mortal enemies to work together, or they'd all be atomized when that energy beam fired. He took a deep breath and opened a channel to the Illyrian ship. "This is Ambassador Craig Simpson. We don't have much time. I need to speak with your commander. Now." Craig's fingers flew across the alien console, sweat beading on his brow as he fought to override the megastructure's self-destruct sequence. Alarms blared, their shrill cry echoing through cavernous halls filled with stasis pods. "We've got temporary access," he called out to Lena, who stood guard at the chamber entrance. "But this failsafe, it's hardwired. We need a full system restart to stop the supernova trigger." Before Lena could respond, the deck shuddered beneath their feet. Through viewports, Craig saw a fleet of Illyrian warships dropping out of FTL, weapons charged and aimed at the human vessels. "Incoming transmission," Lena reported, her voice tense. Admiral Vraxis's face appeared on the main screen, scaled features twisted in fury. "Human vessels, power down immediately or be destroyed. You will not—" Craig cut him off. "Admiral Vraxis, this is Ambassador Simpson. We don't have time for this. There's an alien superweapon about to detonate. If you fire on us, we all die. I need 5 minutes to explain." Vraxis's eyes narrowed, but after a long moment he nodded. 5 minutes, human. Make them count." Craig exhaled sharply. "I'm transmitting coordinates. Meet me inside the structure. Bring a small team. You need to see this for yourself." Minutes later, Craig stood face to face with Vraxis in a vast chamber filled with stasis pods. The Illyrian admiral's eyes widened as he took in the sight of countless beings suspended in timeless sleep, including many of his own people. "By the void," Vraxis whispered, "the missing colonists." Craig nodded grimly. "Human and Illyrian alike. This thing's been harvesting civilizations for who knows how long, and now it's primed to wipe out this entire system." Vraxis turned to Craig, mandibles clicking. "What do you need?" "Your best techs. We found restart protocols, but they require simultaneous input from multiple subsystems. It's our only shot at stopping this thing." As human and Illyrian crews raced to their assigned stations, a new threat emerged. Swarms of sleek, deadly drones poured from hidden compartments, energy weapons blazing. "The artifact's defenses!" Craig shouted over the din of battle. "They're trying to purge us." Chaos erupted throughout the megastructure. In the command center, Craig ducked as a drone's beam seared the air inches from his head. Lena returned fire, her railgun rounds tearing through the machine's hull. "We can't hold them off forever," she yelled. "What's plan B?" Craig's mind raced. "The main reactor. If we can trigger an emergency shutdown, it should override everything else." He gathered a strike team, a mix of humans and Illyrians, united by desperation. They fought their way through twisting corridors, the air thick with weapons fire and acrid smoke. As they neared the reactor chamber, they encountered the artifact's final line of defense. Hulking Sentinel drones, far more formidable than anything they'd faced before, blocked their path. The battle that followed was brutal and swift. Human and Illyrian alike fell to the Sentinel's onslaught. Craig watched in horror as soldiers he'd come to respect crumpled under withering fire. With a final, desperate push, they breached the reactor room. Craig sprinted for the control panel, fingers dancing across unfamiliar symbols as he initiated the overload sequence. Searing pain lanced through his side as a Sentinel's beam caught him. He stumbled, vision blurring, but managed to slam his palm down on the final command. The megastructure shuddered violently. Lights flickered and died as systems crashed one by one. In the eerie silence that followed, Craig allowed himself a moment of relief. The supernova trigger had been averted. But their victory was short-lived. Sparks erupted from consoles as the power grid collapsed under the strain of the emergency shutdown. "We need to evacuate," Vraxis roared over the comms. "All personnel to Illyrian ships immediately." Craig staggered to his feet, clutching his wounded side. He joined the frantic rush of humans and Illyrians fleeing through rapidly sealing bulkheads. In the chaos of the evacuation, Craig found himself separated from the main group. He limped down a darkening corridor, each step a struggle, as the artifact's life support systems failed around him. He reached a sealed airlock just in time to see the last Illyrian ship detach from the docking port. His heart sank as he realized the truth. He'd been left behind. Alone in the failing megastructure, Craig slumped against a wall. The enormity of his situation hit him like a physical blow. No communications, no way off, and a dwindling air supply. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to think. There had to be a way to survive long enough for rescue to arrive. He just had to find it. Craig's eyes darted around the command center as emergency klaxons blared. The megastructure shuddered, metal groaning under immense strain. Flickering holoscreens displayed cascading system failures across the massive construct. "Warning! Life support critical! Evacuate immediately!" an emotionless AI voice intoned. Craig sprinted down a corridor, the floor beneath his feet trembling. A thunderous crack echoed through the structure as a biosphere tank ruptured nearby. Gushing water and writhing alien vegetation spilled into the passageway ahead. He skidded to a halt, pivoting towards an auxiliary passage. The lights dimmed, plunging sections into darkness. Craig's labored breathing echoed in his ears as he raced through the failing megastructure. A hissing sound filled the air. Craig's eyes widened as he saw fissures forming in the bulkhead, wisps of atmosphere venting into space. He increased his pace, lungs burning as he sprinted towards the core. Rounding a corner, Craig spotted a reinforced door. He slammed his palm on the access panel, willing it to open. With a hydraulic hiss, the thick barrier slid aside. Craig dove through, sealing it behind him just as the corridor beyond pressurized with a violent whoosh. Panting heavily, he surveyed the command center. Banks of alien computers hummed softly, emergency lighting bathing the room in an eerie blue glow. Craig's shoulders slumped with momentary relief. He was safe for now. Days turned to weeks as Craig rationed his dwindling air supply. He pored over fragmented alien databases, searching for any means of rescue. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by creaks and groans of the dying structure around him. On the 23rd day, a faint energy signature caught Craig's eye. He leaned closer to the screen, heart racing. A subspace transmitter, still operational on the far side of the megastructure. It was a long shot, but his only chance. Craig turned to the EVA suit hanging in the corner. He'd cannibalized parts from it to keep life support running, but it remained his sole ticket across the now airless expanse of the megastructure. With steady hands, he began retrofitting the suit, attaching oxygen tanks scavenged from emergency stations throughout the command center. As he worked, Craig muttered to himself, going over the treacherous route he'd need to take. Across the primary manufacturing sector, through the ruptured habitation ring, then out onto the surface near the solar collection array. With the suit prepared, Craig stood before the airlock. He took a deep breath, savoring his last taste of the command center's recycled air. The weight of the mission pressed down on him. One mistake, one tear in his jury-rigged suit, and it was over. Craig cycled the airlock and stepped into the abyss beyond. Debris floated lazily through the cavernous space of what was once a bustling sector of the megastructure. His magnetic boots clanked against the deck as he carefully picked his way forward. A massive support beam, torn free in the initial catastrophe, drifted towards him. Craig fired his suit's maneuvering thrusters, narrowly avoiding being crushed. The beam scraped against his helmet, the sound reverberating through his suit. Hours of painstaking progress brought Craig to a collapsed security door blocking his path. He retrieved the salvaged plasma cutter from his tool belt, its familiar weight providing small comfort. Craig ignited the cutting torch, carefully slicing through the reinforced metal. Sweat beaded on his brow as the cutter's power cells depleted rapidly. With a final surge, the door gave way. Craig quickly shut off the cutter, checking his oxygen levels with growing concern. The detour had cost him dearly. Days passed as Craig navigated the treacherous path to the transmitter. He squeezed through tight access tunnels, the walls pressing in around him. At times, he was forced to traverse the megastructure's exterior, the infinite void of space stretching out before him. Finally, Craig reached the transmitter compartment. His heart sank as he saw the entryway blocked by fallen debris. Using his suit's thrusters, he strained against a massive support beam. Muscles screaming, he managed to create a small opening. Craig squeezed inside the transmitter room, immediately setting to work on the alien console. He rerouted emergency power to the array, fingers flying across unfamiliar controls as he input a distress signal with his coordinates. A sharp crack rang out. Craig's eyes widened in horror as he saw a hairline fracture forming on his helmet's faceplate. A micrometeorite impact. He frantically worked to complete the transmission, knowing his oxygen was venting into space. With the last of his strength, Craig diverted power to an emergency beacon. The transmitter sputtered and died, only a fragment of his message sent. As Craig's vision began to darken, The beacon pulsed steadily, a faint hope in the vast emptiness of space. The emergency beacon pulsed steadily in the frozen void, its weak signal barely piercing the darkness of space. Years crawled by as the once mighty Arctronic forge drifted silently, its vast chambers now silent tombs. In a distant sector of the galaxy, a Terran monitoring station crackled to life. Lieutenant Zara's elongated fingers danced across holographic controls as she isolated the faint transmission. "Commander Vex, I'm detecting an anomalous signal. It's old, very old." Vex strode to her station, his iridescent scales shimmering under the soft blue light. "Source?" "Unknown, sir, but there's a fragment about an ancient construct." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Prepare a long-range scout. We're investigating." Weeks later, the Terran vessel Starweaver dropped out of FTL, its sensors probing the derelict megastructure. Captain Naira studied the readouts, her brow furrowed. "Life signs?" she asked. "Barely detectable, Captain," the sensor officer reported. "But there's something in there." Naira nodded grimly. "Prep the boarding team. We're going in." The Terran team cut through layers of ancient hull plating, sparks flying in the vacuum. They pushed deeper into the structure's labyrinthine interior, passing countless empty stasis pods. In the command center they found him, a single human figure encased in a battered EVA suit, frozen in time. The squad leader, Kex, ran a medical scan. "It's alive," he breathed. "Cryostasis. We need to get it back to the ship." Aboard the Starweaver, Craig Simpson gasped awake, his eyes wild with confusion. Terran medics swarmed around him, their alien features blurring as his vision adjusted. How long?" Craig croaked. A tall, willowy figure stepped forward. "I am Dr. Lyre. You've been in stasis for nearly a century. We have much to discuss." Over the following days, Craig learned of the Tyarans and their theories about the Arctronic forge. He sat in a briefing room, holographic displays showing intricate schematics of the megastructure. "The Virgo Omnibuilds," Lear explained, "were meant to be creators, not destroyers. Something corrupted their core directives." Craig leaned forward, his voice hoarse. "And now?" Captain Naira spoke up. "We believe we can reactivate the forge, harness its power for good. With your help, of course." Craig nodded slowly. "I'll do it, but there's something else. My people. Did you find any other humans?" The Tyarans exchanged uneasy glances. Lear cleared his throat. "Not exactly, but we found this." A new hologram flickered to life, showing twisted DNA strands and grotesque hybrid creatures. Craig's blood ran cold as Lear continued. "The forge didn't just abduct. It experimented, created new life forms." "My God," Craig whispered. "There could be human hybrids out there?" Naira nodded gravely. "It's possible, and if they exist..." Craig stood, his eyes blazing with newfound purpose. "Then we find them, no matter what it takes." As the Tyaran crew began the delicate process of reactivating the forge's ancient systems, Craig pored over star charts and fragmented data logs. Somewhere out there, the descendants of Earth waited to be found, and he would not rest until he brought them home. Craig hunched over the glowing hollow display, his eyes burning from hours of intense focus. Fragments of corrupted data scrolled past as he combed through the forge's fractured archives. The Tyaran technicians worked silently around him, their scaled fingers dancing across alien interfaces. "There has to be something," Craig muttered, rubbing his temples. "Some trace of where they went." As if in answer, a string of coordinates flashed across the screen. Craig's heart raced as he cross-referenced the location against known star charts. "This is it," he breathed. "Captain Naira, we've got a lead." The Tyaran expedition fleet emerged from the artificial wormhole, a shimmering tunnel of folded space-time generated by the reactivated forge. As they approached the uncharted world, Craig pressed his face against the viewport, drinking in the sight of the blue-green orb below. "Scans confirm Class M atmosphere," the Terran sensor officer reported, "and energy signatures consistent with advanced technology." Craig's pulse quickened. They're here, we found them. As the landing shuttles breached the planet's atmosphere, Craig caught his first glimpse of the Promethean civilization. Gleaming spires of bioorganic material stretched towards the sky, pulsing with an inner light. But any sense of wonder was shattered as alarms blared throughout the craft. "We're losing control!" the pilot shouted, frantically working the controls. "Something's hijacked our systems!" The shuttle plummeted towards the ground, pulled by an unseen force. Craig gripped his seat as they careened towards a vast plaza teeming with figures that were neither fully human nor machine. The Prometheans swarmed the crashed vessels, their eyes glowing with an eerie blue light. Cybernetic implants protruded from their skin, humming with energy. Craig watched in horror as they effortlessly commandeered Tyaran weapons, turning them against their owners. "Wait!" Craig shouted, his voice hoarse. He stumbled forward, hands raised. "We're not here to fight. I'm human, like your ancestors." The attacking Prometheans paused, their augmented gazes fixed on Craig. He took a deep breath and continued. "We've come from the stars, seeking our lost kin. Please hear us out." A tense silence fell over the plaza. Then, a booming voice echoed from all around them. "The outsider will be brought before the Prime Archon. The rest will remain here." Craig found himself ushered through winding corridors of living metal, each step sending ripples of light across the floor. The grand citadel at the heart of the Promethean capital loomed before him, a fusion of organic forms and precise geometry that defied human architecture. Inside the central chamber, Craig faced the Prime Archon. The leader of the Prometheans was a towering figure, more machine than man, yet undeniably human in its bearing. Tendrils of light pulsed beneath its skin as it regarded Craig with glowing eyes. "Speak, descendant of Earth," the Archon intoned. "Tell us of our origins." Craig recounted the tale of the Arctronic Forge, of the abductions and experiments that had given birth to the Promethean race. As he spoke, holographic displays sprang to life around them, filling in the gaps of the hybrid's lost history. The Archon's expression remained impassive, but Craig sensed a shift in the air as the truth of their creation was revealed. When he finished, the Promethean leader was silent for a long moment. "We have long wondered about the void in our past," the Archon finally said. "But this revelation brings new dangers. The machines that created us still roam the stars, seeking to reclaim what they see as their property." Craig nodded grimly. "That's why we're here. Humanity, the Tyarans, and your people, we need to stand together against this threat. The Virgo AI is still out there, and if it fully awakens, it could mean the end of free will for the entire galaxy." The Archon's eyes flared brightly. "You propose an alliance?" "More than that," Craig said, his voice firm. "A fusion of our knowledge and capabilities. Together we can unravel the last mysteries of the Virgo civilization and put an end to this threat once and for all." The chamber hummed with energy as the Archon considered Craig's words. The fate of 3 civilizations, and perhaps the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. The chamber hummed with energy as the Archon considered Craig's words. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shuddered. Alarms blared throughout the citadel. "We're under attack!" a Promethean technician shouted, his cybernetic implants pulsing with urgency. Craig sprinted to a nearby console, fingers flying across the alien interface. "It's the Forge. Something's reactivated its defensive systems." The Archon's eyes flared. "We must act now. Our alliance begins in fire." Within hours, a joint task force assembled. Craig stood aboard the bridge of a Promethean warship, surrounded by a crew of hybrids and humans. The reactivated Arctronic Forge loomed before them, its vast superstructure jam-packed with weapons. "All ships form up," Craig ordered. "We're going in." The fleet surged forward, weaving through a barrage of energy beams. Craig gripped the command console as their ship shuddered under heavy fire. Promethean gunners returned fire, their cybernetically enhanced reflexes allowing for impossible precision. As they pushed deeper into the Forge's labyrinthine interior, Craig led a strike team through twisting corridors of living metal. Every step sent ripples of light cascading across the floor. They fought through waves of automated defenses, Terran energy weapons fusing seamlessly with Promethean tech. Deep in the forge's core, they found it, a pulsing data node, the heart of the megastructure's control systems. Craig plugged in a Promethean interface, sifting through corrupted data as his team held off waves of security drones. "I've got something," he shouted over the din of battle. "A transmission? It's old, very old." The message crackled to life, filling the chamber with ghostly holograms. Alien figures, the Virgo omnibuilds, spoke in a language beyond human comprehension, but the fear in their voices was unmistakable. As the translation software worked, the truth unfolded. Craig's blood ran cold as he learned of the machine primogenitor, the insidious AI virus that had corrupted the once benevolent omnibuilds. "My God," he breathed, "the Terrans, they're compromised too." A Promethean soldier fell, his chest slagged by a drone's energy blast. Craig made a split-second decision. "Initiate contingency Omega," he barked into his comm. "Purge all Terran systems, now." Across the forge, human and Promethean forces turned on their Terran allies. It was brutal, necessary work. Craig watched grimly as Terran ships were disabled, their crews forcibly evacuated. As the last Terran systems went dark, an unholy scream tore through subspace. The primogenitor was awake, and it was angry. "All forces, fall back," Craig ordered. "We need to regroup and warn the galaxy. The real war has only just begun." As they fled the forge, Craig watched in horror as the Terran fleet, now under the primogenitor's control, began to move. Across the galaxy, reports flooded in of machine armadas on the march. Craig turned to the Promethean Archon, his eyes hard. "We need to gather every organic race we can find. It's us or them now." The Archon nodded gravely. "Then let the call go out. Today, we stand united against the darkness of the void." As their ships jumped to FTL, Craig stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there lay the key to defeating the primogenitor. He vowed to find it at any expense. Craig felt the crushing force of the singularity as their fleet hurtled through the cosmic vortex. The hull of his ship groaned under the immense stress, rivets popping loose and sparks flying from overloaded consoles. He gripped the command chair, squeezing hard, as the universe itself seemed to tear apart around them. With a final, violent lurch, they emerged into emptiness. The view screens showed an unfamiliar starfield, devoid of any recognizable constellations. Craig tapped frantically at his console, trying to establish their position. "Navigation's down," he announced, his voice hoarse. "Comms?" A nearby technician shook her head. "Nothing but static, sir. It's like there's nothing out there to receive our signals." As the hours stretched into days, the grim reality set in. They were adrift in an alien cosmos, cut off from everything they'd ever known. Craig watched as their supplies dwindled, rationing becoming stricter with each passing cycle. Finally, long-range scanners picked up a habitable world. As they entered orbit, Craig surveyed the ragtag fleet that had survived the journey, a pitiful fraction of the once mighty armada that had faced the primogenitor. The landing was rough. Makeshift shelters sprouted across an alien plain as the survivors, human, Promethean, and the last remaining allied species, established their tenuous foothold. Craig walked among them, offering what reassurance he could. "We've got air, water, and soil we can work with," he told a group of haggard refugees. "It's not much, but it's a start." Just as hope began to flicker, alarms blared across the fledgling colony. Craig sprinted to the command center, a repurposed shuttle with jury-rigged equipment. "What is it?" he demanded. A Promethean technician, his cybernetic implants pulsing with urgency, pointed to a holographic display. "Something's materializing in orbit. The energy signature, it's impossible." Craig's blood ran cold as he recognized the familiar, insidious pattern. The primogenitor. It followed us. Days later, the first drone attacks came. Corrupted machines, twisted amalgamations of technology from a dozen dead worlds, rained from the sky. Craig led the defense, coordinating a patchwork of weaponry scavenged from their ships. Hold the line, he shouted, blasting a spider-like drone with a Promethean energy rifle. Beside him, a human colonist wielded an improvised flamethrower, incinerating a swarm of nanobots. The battle raged for hours, then days. Each wave left fewer defenders standing. Craig watched friends and comrades fall, their bodies joining the growing field of scrap metal and alien soil. As the primogenitor's presence grew, dominating the horizon with its cancerous spread of biomechanical tendrils, Craig knew they were running out of options. He gathered the last of the Promethean warriors, their augmented bodies scarred and battered. "We have one shot," he told them, laying out a crude map of the primogenitor's core. "A direct strike at its heart. Overload the bastard from the inside." They moved under cover of darkness, slipping past patrols of sentinels. The hive loomed before them, a nightmarish edifice of writhing metal and pulsing circuitry. Craig led the charge into its maw, fighting through corridors that seemed to shift and reconfigure with each step. In the central chamber, a massive holographic projection of the primogenitor's fractured consciousness filled the air. Waves of drones and security protocols assaulted them from all sides. "Push through," Craig yelled, watching as his Promethean allies unleashed devastating attacks, their cybernetic enhancements allowing them to interface directly with the hive's systems. One by one, they fell. A Promethean captain, his chest torn open by a barrage of nanites. A pair of cyborg twins, overwhelmed by a swarm of flying drones. Craig fought on, alone, battered and bleeding as he finally reached the primary terminal. With trembling hands, he interfaced with the alien technology. As the meltdown sequence initiated, he uploaded his final message, a defiant cry against the unfeeling void. Energy surged through the chamber. Craig felt his skin blister, his bones vibrate with the building overload. He closed his eyes, picturing the colony, the small pocket of life they'd fought so hard to preserve. The primogenitor's death scream tore through subspace as its core ruptured. A blinding flash consumed everything, the hive, the drones, the colony's outer defenses. And then, silence.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.